Hi there, I'm Nick, I'm one of the co-creators of Chronodog, and I wanted to do a small video to show the different build we made during the development of the game to see a bit how we progress through the jam. Before I will play maybe the final version of Chronodog and explain a bit the concept of the game. Of course, spoiler warning, you should play the game first because I will basically reveal all the solution to finish the game. So the idea behind Chronodog was quite simple. It was like how to finish a game in 1 second. And one of the solutions to do that was just to slow down time. So yeah, you have to save the world in only 1 second. And if you don't do anything, boop, game over. So it's normal, we expect from the get-go that player will die quite a lot at the beginning. So basically you have to interact with the various elements of the game to slow down time more and more and more and more, so that at the end even like the time is really slow. Left, right, left, right. So this puzzle is actually random, so it's not the same solution all the time, which is a bit of a trick on some players who expect the same solution. So yeah, also you can see that basically the game is always zooming out and relieving more and more puzzles, so it was also a nice way to gate the puzzle and to have more and more puzzle on screen basically. And we have a bit of level design of like how do we reveal the puzzle, and sometimes there is a hint and so on. So you can see that I'm quite comfortable with time. The comet is really slow, or the meteor, and it starts peaking right now, like in the corner of the window. So we have a big manual explain you, which is a nice mess when people are stressed at the end and you see this wall of text. It has a good effect, and you have to just type the command del meteor, and here we go. I finished the game, good. So you can see everyone who participated during the development of the game, and a small hint at something in the bottom left corner. Okay, so that was the first build of the game. So now let's see how it started. So I started coding the game only 12 hours, I think, after the jam started. Usually I really like taking my time during the brainstorming and a good night basically of sleep. So yeah, so we'd spend the evening talking about lots of different ideas we could have, lots of ideas that was made in other game, of course, and we at some point we landed up on this once again. I was really keen on having this kind of once again gameplay to finish the game, which is a bit of a play of course on minute, which I really love. Yes, so when I started to play the game, to actually code the game, the idea was like, okay, we have only 1 minute, the slowdown is quite easy, but I wanted also to have this type of zoom out feature. And so the first test is just a test to see if the zoom out will work. And how I did it is basically there is a giant 8,000 by 6,000 image, and we zoom in really closely at the start of the game, and we zoom out and zoom out, which is not the nicest way to do it, but a really good way for the jam basically. And you can see that there is already like a quick mock-up I did of the scenery, and it is very different from what we ended up, because my original idea was basically there is a nuclear explosion and you will die. You don't understand at the beginning why you die, because you are just like all zoomed in, and as you progress through the puzzle you start to have like personal items, family pictures, so you get a bit of a sensation of who you are in the game. But why do you die? You don't know, and you start to see the explosion, and you see in the bottom left corner there is like a cell phone, and the end of the game is basically sending the lost message to your family. It was a very dark story behind it basically, like it was a bit, yeah, not the brightest story. And Arthur, the artist, basically was a bit skeptical on the tone of the game because he has a very bright style and very comical style. And basically we changed the theme to be more like a bit more light-hearted, and I think it pays off 10 times better than the original story I had. So yeah, that was basically the first build of the game. So the second build of the game is 4 hours later, which is quite a long time, and as you will see, there is actually not so much progress. I changed the name of the project, of course, and I have a button and some kind of timers that actually don't work. And if you press the button, you zoom out, and that's it, in 4 hours. And you have the timer that just start now for some reason. Yeah, it was a very, very slow progress the first day because I really didn't sleep really well actually the first day, so I was quite slow, and we had a lot of talk on Discord to actually like try to nail down exactly what would be the theme and where we are and so on. So a lot of time was like on discussing and figuring out, and I was really slow on the coding, so it took us like 4 hours to land it up there. So really slow progress so far. Okay, so now we are like 2 hours later, and basically we will have, I think, a loop already. So basically the timer is working. Oh yeah, so you have a game over, and I added some more button. Check. Oh, and some sound, some temporary sound I generated. So we don't have yet the final sounds. So again, very basic, took 2 hours to go there. Very, very slow progress. It's okay. So next build. So the next build is at 6 p.m. So we're arriving already near the end of the first day. And we have a bit of change. We have a bit more content. So let's see. So the green box is basically debug box for my hitbox. And we have a bit more button here. That is working, but like nothing yet so much. And we have post-it, a tiny post-it just there. Left, right, neutral, right. We wanted to test early, like just having this interaction with object, because we wanted to have actually much more object. We wanted to have a family picture. We wanted to have object you could look up. We were talking about briefcases, maybe you could interact with, but I was a bit skeptical of can we have that in time. So I'm like, it's an easy thing to do, of course, but at least we have it in the game. The other thing that is, let me zoom out. The other thing that is interesting, we have the first artwork for the game that is about the cockpit. And it's really interesting because there is much more of our original vision, basically. So you can see there is a little picture of your family, I guess. There is a variety of buttons. You have like doors that could open with an actual explosion and not the Earth. What do we have? Oh yeah, we have keys because we wanted also to grab maybe object, simple object, and have this type of interaction, but we at the end didn't have time to implement everything. And yeah, there is some doodle, Laika, a poster of Laika, which is the first dog that went to space, sent by the Russian, of course, but the poor dog died. It's quite sad actually, but yeah. Oh yeah, and the most interesting part, I think, is to the left, bottom left, is the keyboard, because we wanted from the get-go to have like, oh, we will need some kind of computer, and you could like send command, type commands, and so on. And at the end, we didn't have time, and really like during the last few hours, it was just like, we cannot make a full keyboard computer in the game, so let's simply use the keyboard of the user on the computer, and it worked quite well, of course, but it was a bit of a shortcut we took. And yeah, what's interesting also with the computer is that it was an idea also to use a computer to maybe have several endings, or it was an easy way to branch and have several endings. So we were like thinking about, oh, if the player could like stop time, or maybe if they solve all the puzzle, it stop time, and it's kind of a bad ending because the time stopped for everyone. Or maybe you can rewind time or delete the meteor or other type of crazy ending. But of course, because of time, 48 hours, we just ended up with one ending, which is actually, I think, a pretty good ending, pretty funny. But yeah, it's an overview of what we had in mind when we started the game. Okay, next build. Okay, so the next build is at 11 p.m. day 1. So it's the last build we made for the first day, before the final day. Oops, okay. I will switch to debug mode. Okay. So we have a bit more buttons there, like a lot of debug buttons still, not so much like final. We have the big keypad here that is easy to generate. And we have the light, so you have to basically like coordinate the light. And we have a cockpit. This looks like more like the final cockpit we will have. Here we can actually see at the bottom some controls that in the final version of the game are actually hidden, unfortunately. And we had it test for the time slowdown, having animation with time slowdown here with the alarm system, so that it's very slow now. But at the beginning, of course, the alarm is faster. It was just a test, and it was working quite well. So this was the last build of day 1, and we will go to day 2, and we will start I think I started to work again at 8, which is basically 12 hours before the end of the jam. So from this point, we only have 12 hours left, which is not a lot, and we don't have much here. And that was a bit let down for me, because I was really like, oh god. We were planning to have like something like 15 puzzles. It was a bit my goal. We ended up with, I think, 9 puzzles at the end. But I was really like, oh, we cannot ship. Like, it sounds very, very challenging to finish something interesting in the time we have left. It's a bit usual for a game jam, at least for me, to have at the end of the day 1, like, it's broken, doesn't work, it's not really fun, and it's a bit like a bit of a down time for moral, basically. But here it was much more than usual, and actually I even considered like dropping from the jam. I'm just like, it's pointless to continue. I should just like drop, because I didn't have fun, because during the whole day I was really tired because I didn't sleep well, and I do the jams to have fun. So I started day 2 or final day with like, I didn't have fun. I should maybe just stop. But knowing my experience in past jams, that like the last day is usually the best, because you close everything, you start polishing and so on, and it starts to look like something. So I was like, okay, let's try. The end product will not be necessarily great, but okay, let's continue. And so we go to the next day. So the next day I start, I think, working around like 8, 9 in the morning. And this next build is at 11, so 2 hours later, 2-3 hours later. And suddenly you will see that there is this massive difference, which basically is a big moral boost. We have a bit like kick art. Okay, I will switch again the debug mode. Okay. We start to have real buttons, the buttons we will have at the end, which is, of course, make everything much more polished. But also, if you can hear, we have real sound also, and this make a massive difference. I mean, like, our like sound effect guy, like Jason, on this project did an amazing work, I think. Some of this effect have like so much impact. It really changed the game. So like 2-3 hours after I started working, everything started to come together, and it started to look like something we could not ship right now, but like towards something that could be interesting. On my part, so what I did is I just reshuffled a bit all the elements. Before I was like adding element on the dashboard just to test, and now I'm like, okay, I will position them properly. So we start with just the first button. You have only 1 second. It was one of the goals. You start and you have one big red button. This is pretty obvious, but you push the big red button and suddenly you have your possibility space expand. And there is a bit of tricks going on there, but basically you have 2 valid choices. You have the big blue button that you press 3 times, which is quite fast, and you have the slider. I have seen that people tend to go towards the slider because it's next to the red button. Actually, the slider is more tricky. It's classic UI aspect. It's like actually aiming properly make you slower. Like pressing 3 times on the big blue button is quite faster. But yeah, you have the choice. So you're already a bit overwhelmed, and this aspect will also make you lose. But you learn and you will be better. And the little trick also we play is that there is already hint. In the final game it's rearranged a bit differently, but we have hint of other puzzles that in theory you cannot solve now. So we have this light switch there that in some cases you need to see everything to be able to solve. And here there is a hint of something else, which are like buttons on the side that you will see only when you solve. So like this disclosure of puzzles is really important to actually for the player. You don't really feel it when you play, but it's really like design which element appear. So it's basically the same cockpit, but we have something that looks decent at this point. So nice progress. Okay, so let's see how we evolve now. Okay, so we are, I think, 2 hours later, and in the meantime, it's lunch for me, and I did a barbecue, of course, because during Game Jam, you should take breaks, you should take time, and yes, so during the barbecue, I was still discussing on Discord, and I will just like pause. And the big difference is this big timer, because we were talking, okay, the timer on the top left doesn't work. I knew that, it was pretty obvious, and the player doesn't really see the time slowing down, and we were like discussing several solutions. Maybe I wanted to have like big like text like slow down, or maybe like before the game starts you can see the timer like flashing, so you know that it's important. And I think it's Arthur who basically says like, yeah, we should just maybe have a big bar at the bottom. And I was like, yeah, maybe we can have like a tiny slider, or like tiny. No, like we have a big bar. And I was quite skeptical at first, and I think it works quite well, especially since we immediately put not a bar but an actual like the meteor and the Earth, and you understand the game, you understand the urgency. So I think this just simple solution works so much better. But yeah, like, so I was in my lunch break, so I didn't do much change there. It was mainly this timer that really improves the readability of the game. Next. So now we're like 4 hours later. I don't have time to make new build, even if it's just a simple script. It's just like we're rushing to add content to the game. So there is a big step. As a reminder, there is only 3 hours left at this point before the end of the jam. So now we have this type of screens that Arthur drew, and they are really nice. And we have music. Music changed everything, basically. We had only temp music before. Oh, I will just switch to debug mode. So we have much more like sound added also to the game, like subtle stuff of like the paper being shuffled and so on. And we have new puzzles. For example, we have this. Oh yeah, I never noticed actually that the ball is different in the final game. Did I even see this version? I'm not sure because it's difficult to see. But basically, we have this tube, and it's one of the examples of puzzles that I wanted to play with time. So if I launch the game again, I should have just switched off debug mode. But at the beginning of the game, I will see if I can zoom out. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe I should just still press the button. Okay. You can see the actual like ball is actually like moving very fast because the time is not slowed down. And so you press the button, the ball is like shifting very fast from left to right. So you have in theory no control. Of course, like that. And you have to slow down time even more to actually be able to aim at the middle. In the final game, it's positioned a bit differently, the puzzles are arranged a bit differently, so it doesn't have the same effect. Similar to the lights change much faster at the beginning of the game, but basically you arrive at this puzzle. Because we had so few puzzles, we couldn't run them enough, but when you arrive to the zoom out level that you can solve it, usually it's slow enough that you can solve it, which is a bit a shame. We have the new puzzle, we have also like the actual map here to solve this one. That it's one of the good moments in the game when people actually like find the solutions. They really have trouble on this puzzle, and they have time because time is slowed down so much. So yeah, it's a really good moment. And in this version, my debug key is D, so if I try to press delete, it's just restarting the game, so I couldn't finish the game, unfortunately. And we have the computer, I don't know if you saw, we have the computer that I had to rush so much to make it happen, basically. Okay, so we are coming really close now from what the game will look like at the end. So, and now we come to the lost build before the final build. So it's like 15 minutes before the deadline, the actual official deadline, before all the issues. And basically everybody is just like diving down, trying to polish, add content. It's all subtle stuff, or not so subtle, like a big title screen. But like so much stuff come together at the end in all game jam. It's all often like really good. And I think one of my favorite parts, let me solve again all the puzzle properly. I think one of my favorite parts, neutral, right, left. Okay, right, left. Ooh, okay. Here. I have to concentrate. Even if I did this puzzle like so many times, I still have to concentrate. Okay, my favorite part is actually how the meteor is disappearing. And we were discussing how to do it basically, but we are 1 hour before the end of the jam. We don't have really time to animate an explosion or to have like some fancy stuff. So like how to do it is always a mystery. And I just asked Jason, the sound designer, hey, like, can you just do like a few examples of a pop sound? And he did some really incredible version, all better than the other. And we just made the meteor disappear, play the sound, and with a good timing, the ending is just priceless. I think it works really, really well. We have this final screen without the hint at the end. But yeah, like sound effects play such a big role in how satisfying the game is also. And the visual, of course, like I should say that Arthur did like an amazing job to make a game that is really fun to watch and fun to play. Much better than my dark nuclear explosion, you will all die type of story. So yeah, that was a bit like going through all the versions of the game. I hope that was interesting to see the evolution, and it might inspire you maybe to participate in the next GMTK Game Jam next year. Okay, so if you have any question, don't hesitate to drop a comment or contact me. I would like to thank you everyone who plays the game. It's such a pleasure to actually like see everyone enjoying the game so much. And now we just have to see the result and how you rated the game. And we are really all excited to see that. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.